It was a typical Friday evening at LAX, the bustling heart of Los Angeles International Airport. The terminal was filled with the usual mix of travelers, business people in their crisp suits, families heading out for vacations, and the occasional celebrity trying to blend in with the crowd. But amidst all the chatter and the constant hum of announcements, one event would soon unfold that would leave everyone talking for weeks to come. Keanu Reeves, the beloved actor known for his roles in iconic films like The Matrix and John Wick, had just completed a grueling series of interviews for his latest film. He was exhausted, craving a quiet getaway from the spotlight. Keanu, always known for his humble demeanor, opted for a quiet, commercial flight rather than a private jet, something that he often did to maintain his grounded nature. He had already passed through the security checks, and now he was walking toward the gate of his flight to New York. The crew for the flight was already in place, the captain, the first officer, and the flight attendants. Among them was Vanessa, a relatively new air hostess who was still learning the ropes of flying the skies. She had always dreamed of working for a prestigious airline, and today, she was excited to work on a flight that was bound for New York. What she didn't expect was that this flight would be unlike any other she had worked before. Keanu made his way toward the entrance of the first-class cabin, a place where he was accustomed to sitting, even though he wasn't a fan of the lavish treatment. To Keanu, luxury wasn't about comfort but about solitude, and first class usually offered that. The flight attendants had already prepped the area, and as Keanu took his seat by the window, he couldn't help but notice the calm before the storm. The flight was fully booked, and he could already hear murmurs from the passengers behind him. Word spread quickly, Keanu Reeves was on board. Vanessa, who was walking through the aisles preparing for takeoff, had heard the whispers as well. She wasn't a massive fan of his work, but she recognized him as soon as she saw him. She had grown up watching his movies, especially his role as Neo in The Matrix. But she wasn't starstruck. She was there to do her job. However, something about Keanu's presence felt different, almost surreal. She walked up to him and offered her warmest smile. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you anything to start?" Vanessa asked, trying to maintain professionalism. Keanu returned a smile, as genuine as ever, and replied, "Just a glass of water, thank you." He looked out the window, lost in his thoughts as the flight was about to depart. It was peaceful, just how he liked it. Little did he know, the calm was about to shatter. As the plane began to taxi to the runway, there was a sudden interruption from the back of the plane. A passenger, in a hurry, had moved too quickly and accidentally spilled his drink on another passenger sitting across the aisle. The flight attendants scrambled to calm the situation, but as they did, Vanessa was momentarily distracted. She didn't notice one of the other flight attendants who had bumped into Keanu's seat as she passed by. As she did so, a coffee cup on her tray tilted and spilled, drenching Keanu's lap in hot liquid. It wasn't just a small splash, but a full spill. The heat from the coffee caused Keanu to jump in surprise. Vanessa's eyes widened in horror as she immediately rushed over, apologizing profusely, her heart racing. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed. Keanu was startled but remained calm, wiping off the spill with the napkins she quickly handed him. However, Vanessa's nerves got the best of her. She began fumbling for words, her hands shaking as she tried to explain. I didn't mean to. I swear. It's just, I didn't see it happening and..." She was flustered, and Keanu could see it. He could tell that she wasn't just apologizing for the coffee but also for the embarrassment of the situation. For a brief moment, the cabin fell silent, the other passengers watching the drama unfold in front of them. Keanu, ever the composed actor, tried to ease her anxiety with a light-hearted tone. "It's all right. Don't worry about it. It's just coffee," he said, flashing her a reassuring smile. But as Vanessa backed away, still red in the face, Keanu couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Not because of the coffee, but because of the scene that had just unfolded. It was a small mistake, but the way Vanessa had reacted made it seem like a much bigger deal. She quickly excused herself and left to fetch more napkins. But Keanu's mind wandered. He had been on flights before, but this was something else entirely. He wasn't a fan of drawing attention to himself, but now it seemed like everyone was staring at him, whispering amongst themselves. But what happened next was even more surprising. Vanessa returned with a fresh stack of napkins, her face still flushed with embarrassment. She had hoped the moment would pass quickly, but the eyes of every passenger felt like they were glued to her every move. The last thing she wanted was to make Keanu feel uncomfortable. She had only been in the job for a few months, and she was still learning how to handle these kinds of situations. She had never imagined that something like this would happen with a celebrity. As she approached Keanu's seat once more, she hesitated, unsure of how to handle the situation. She had never encountered a spill that big, let alone with someone as famous as Keanu Reeves. She had to do something more than just apologize. She needed to make sure he was all right. "I'm really sorry about that," Vanessa said, her voice trembling slightly as she knelt beside him, trying to assess the damage to his clothes. Keanu glanced down at his pants, now stained with dark coffee stains. He didn't seem angry, but there was a hint of frustration in his eyes. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but it was the first time it had escalated in such a way. He leaned back in his seat, his hand resting on the armrest as he glanced out the window for a moment. "I'll be fine," he said softly. His tone was calm, but there was a slight edge to his voice now, an indication that he was becoming more annoyed with the situation than he had let on initially. Vanessa stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. She was aware that her boss had been keeping an eye on the interaction, and she didn't want to make things worse. The last thing she wanted was to be scolded or reprimanded in front of everyone, especially not over something that seemed like a simple accident. "I'll go get you a change of clothes, or maybe a blanket to help," Vanessa suggested, her voice trembling as she spoke. Keanu shook his head, his calm demeanor returning. "No need for that. I'll just wait until we land." The words were simple, but there was a hint of finality in his voice that Vanessa couldn't ignore. She felt a pang of guilt in her chest. It was just a simple accident, yet she had managed to make it feel like a much bigger deal than it was. She had worked hard to get this job, and now it seemed like she was blowing it with one small mistake. Vanessa's heart sank as she realized that she couldn't undo what had already happened. The passengers were still watching, the air thick with tension. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was going to affect her career in ways she hadn't anticipated. Just as Vanessa was about to turn and walk away, Keanu spoke again, his voice much softer this time. "Hey," he said, catching her attention. "Don't worry about it. It happens. I know you didn't mean to." Vanessa froze for a moment, surprised by the kindness in his words. She had expected him to be angry or at least frustrated, but instead he was offering her reassurance. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to her. She nodded gratefully, though she still felt awful about the whole situation. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Keanu gave her a warm smile, the kind of smile that had made him a beloved figure in Hollywood. He had this uncanny ability to make people feel at ease, even in the most uncomfortable of circumstances. It was a trait that had earned him the respect and admiration of fans and colleagues alike. The flight attendants moved around them, continuing to serve the passengers as though nothing had happened. The atmosphere in the cabin slowly began to settle, but for Vanessa, the weight of the incident still hung in the air. She couldn't help but replay the moment over and over in her head, wishing she had handled it differently. As the plane soared through the skies, Vanessa tried to focus on her duties. She delivered drinks and snacks, checking in on the passengers from time to time, but her mind kept drifting back to Keanu. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had let him down. And then, just when she thought the situation had passed, she received an unexpected call over the intercom. It was her supervisor, asking her to come to the cockpit. Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. She knew exactly why she was being called in. She had a sinking feeling that her supervisor had heard about the spill, and that her actions, or lack thereof, were under scrutiny. She excused herself and made her way to the front of the plane. As she walked down the narrow aisle, she caught sight of Keanu once more, still sitting quietly in his seat, his eyes closed as he tried to relax. She couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of guilt wash over her. She had hoped to get through this flight without any more incidents, but now it seemed like her mistake was about to come back to haunt her. Vanessa walked towards the cockpit, her mind racing. The soft hum of the plane filled the air, but in her mind, everything was a blur. She had hoped to simply get through the flight, but now the situation seemed much more complicated than she had anticipated. As she approached the cockpit door, she paused for a moment to collect herself. The last thing she wanted was to be scolded in front of the crew or passengers. Her heart was still pounding, but she steeled herself for whatever was coming. Taking a deep breath, she knocked gently on the door. "Come in," came the calm voice of her supervisor, Marissa. Vanessa pushed the door open, her footsteps hesitant but purposeful. Inside, Marissa was standing by the small desk, her arms crossed, a stern look on her face. The cockpit was quiet, and Vanessa noticed the two pilots seated at the controls, focusing intently on the flight's progress. "Vanessa," Marissa said, her voice sharp, yet not unfriendly. "We need to talk about the incident with Mr. Reeves." Vanessa felt her stomach drop. She had been expecting this, but it still stung to hear her supervisor say it so directly. She nodded, unable to meet Marissa's eyes immediately. "I'm really sorry. It was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen." Marissa exhaled slowly, leaning against the desk. "I know it was an accident, but you need to understand that we can't let these things slide, especially not with someone like Mr. Reeves. He's a high-profile passenger, and we can't risk making a bad impression. You're a great air hostess, Vanessa, but this is something you need to handle with more care in the future." The words stung, but they weren't entirely unfair. Marissa wasn't angry, but there was a clear sense of disappointment in her voice. Vanessa knew that the expectations for flight attendants were high, but in this case, the accident had happened so quickly that it felt impossible to avoid. "I understand, Marissa," Vanessa said, her voice quiet but resolute. I panicked, and I didn't handle it well." Marissa softened slightly, sensing the younger woman's distress. "I get that, but in this job you have to be prepared for anything. You can't let nerves get the better of you. We're here to keep the passengers comfortable and safe, no matter who they are. But more importantly, we're here to stay calm in any situation." Vanessa nodded again, trying to absorb the advice. She had always tried to stay calm in stressful situations, but this time, the unexpected spill had caught her off guard. She wished she had reacted differently. "I'll make sure to be more careful next time," Vanessa said, her voice firm as she looked up to meet Marissa's gaze. Marissa smiled, the sternness fading from her face. "That's the spirit. Don't worry too much. This flight is almost over, and we'll see how things go. Just remember, stay focused." Vanessa felt a weight lift off her shoulders as Marissa's tone softened, and she finally felt like the confrontation was over. She turned to leave the cockpit, but just as she was about to step out, Marissa's voice stopped her. "Vanessa, one more thing. I want you to remember that it's not just about the coffee spill. It's about how we manage these situations. It's a chance to show grace under pressure, even when things go wrong." Vanessa turned back and nodded. "I'll keep that in mind. Thanks, Marissa." With that, Vanessa stepped back into the cabin, taking a deep breath as she made her way down the aisle. She could feel the tension in her body begin to ease as she returned to the duties of the flight. She wasn't entirely sure what had happened next, but she knew one thing: she would make it right. As she walked past Keanu's seat once again, she caught a glimpse of his calm demeanor. He was still reading a script, occasionally pausing to make notes. His concentration was intense, but there was an air of humility to him, as if he was completely unaware of the spectacle that had just taken place. Vanessa took another deep breath and walked past him, focusing on her duties. But as she glanced at him, she noticed that he wasn't looking at her. Instead, his attention was directed towards something else. She couldn't tell exactly what it was, but something had caught his eye. Then, in an unexpected twist, Keanu raised his hand and signaled for her to come closer. Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. What now? She had just left the cockpit, and she couldn't help but wonder if she had done something wrong again. Was he still upset? She couldn't be sure. But as she approached, She saw a faint smile on his face, and her nerves immediately eased a little. "Vanessa," Keanu said softly as she came closer, his voice kind. "I know you're doing your best. Don't let what happened earlier get to you. You've been great." Vanessa's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected him to be frustrated, perhaps even annoyed by the entire situation. But here he was, reassuring her in the most unexpected way. She couldn't help but smile, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," Vanessa replied, still a little taken aback by his kindness. "I really appreciate it." Keanu smiled once again, his warm gaze meeting hers. "Just Keanu," he said, chuckling softly. "And honestly, I've been in worse situations. You've handled this one better than some of the others I've been a part of." Vanessa couldn't help but laugh at his comment. For a moment, the tension in the air seemed to vanish, replaced by a shared understanding. In that instant, she realized that Keanu wasn't just a Hollywood icon. He was a person like anyone else who understood what it was like to make mistakes. Vanessa stood there for a moment, still processing what Keanu had just said. The tension in her shoulders had melted away entirely. She was used to dealing with difficult passengers, but this was different. Keanu wasn't just a celebrity. He was a person who treated her with kindness and understanding, something that made the whole experience feel less intimidating. "Keanu," Vanessa said softly, feeling the weight of the moment. "I honestly didn't think you'd be so understanding. Most people would have been upset." Keanu's smile deepened as he placed his script down on the tray in front of him. "Well, life happens, right? It's easy to lose your temper, but there's no need for that. You're doing your job, and accidents happen. The last thing I want is for you to feel bad about it." Vanessa nodded, still trying to absorb the depth of his words. It wasn't just the spill anymore. It was the fact that someone like Keanu had taken the time to make her feel better. There were no airs about him, no arrogance or entitlement. He seemed so genuinely grounded. And in that moment, Vanessa realized how rare that was in Hollywood. "Thank you, really," Vanessa said, her voice more confident now. "I've never really met anyone like you." Keanu shrugged slightly. "I'm just a regular guy who happens to be in movies. I know how tough it can be when things don't go as planned. I've had my share of awkward situations, trust me." Vanessa laughed softly. "I can't imagine you having awkward moments. You're, well, Keanu Reeves." He chuckled, leaning back in his seat. "I know it looks perfect on screen, but behind the scenes it's not always smooth sailing. We all have moments where we mess up, don't know what to do, or feel embarrassed. What matters is how you handle them when they happen." His words were profound, and they resonated with Vanessa on a deep level. For the first time, she felt as though she could approach any situation with more confidence, knowing that even someone as famous and admired as Keanu had been in her shoes before. It was a humbling realization, and it made her appreciate the small, everyday moments even more. "I'll remember that," Vanessa said sincerely. "I'll keep that in mind for the future." Keanu nodded. "Good. And hey, if you ever need anything, just let me know. I'm around. We're all in this together, right?" Vanessa's heart warmed at the offer. She had never expected this kind of kindness from a celebrity. It was rare, almost unheard of, but it made her feel like the world wasn't as cold as it sometimes seemed. It was one of those moments when everything clicked into place, when someone showed you that there was still good in the world, even when things went wrong. As the flight progressed, Vanessa went about her duties with a newfound sense of ease. She served drinks, chatted with passengers, and did everything with more focus and confidence. And through it all, she kept catching glimpses of Keanu. He was still reading his script, still working, but every now and then, their eyes would meet. Each time, he'd offer her that reassuring smile, and Vanessa would feel the tension inside her melt a little more. By the time the plane began its descent into New York, Vanessa had come to realize that the incident with the coffee spill, which had seemed like a disaster at first, had turned into something entirely different. It had brought her into contact with a kind, understanding individual who had reminded her of the importance of grace under pressure. More than that, It had allowed her to see how small gestures of kindness could turn a difficult situation around. As the plane landed and the fasten seatbelt sign flickered off, Vanessa was preparing to assist with the disembarkation process. She moved through the aisles, offering final refreshments, when Keanu called her over one last time. "Vanessa," he said as she reached his seat. "I know you've got a lot to do, but I just wanted to say, you handled everything so well after the spill. I really appreciate it." Vanessa was surprised by his words. She had expected him to just quietly leave, but instead he was offering his final thanks. The sincerity in his voice made her feel even more grateful for the way he had handled the entire ordeal. "Thank you, Keanu," she said, her voice full of genuine appreciation. "You made everything so much easier. I'll remember this experience forever." Keanu smiled and nodded. "That's all I can ask for." As Vanessa watched him gather his belongings and prepare to leave, she felt a rush of pride. It hadn't been the easiest flight, but it had certainly been one of the most memorable. And though the spill had been an embarrassing moment for her, it had led to an unexpected connection, one that would stay with her for years to come. The plane came to a complete stop at the gate, and passengers began to gather their belongings in preparation for disembarkation. Vanessa stood near the front of the cabin, guiding people out with a polite but efficient demeanor. The tension she had felt earlier seemed to have evaporated, but there was still a lingering sense of self-consciousness as she continued her duties. Despite Keanu's kindness, she knew that this moment, the coffee spill, would stay in her mind for a long time. As the last few passengers disembarked, Vanessa finally took a moment to breathe. She leaned against the wall of the galley, letting out a deep sigh. She had just finished a long flight, and the weight of everything that had happened was slowly sinking in. Her supervisor, Marissa, walked past her, offering a reassuring smile. "Good job, Vanessa. You handled it better than I thought you would," Marissa said, her voice casual but sincere. Vanessa smiled back, grateful for the acknowledgement. "Thanks, Marissa. I wasn't sure how it was going to go after the spill, but it worked out." "You learned something today, didn't you?" Marissa asked, raising an eyebrow. Vanessa paused, thinking about the exchange with Keanu. "Yeah, I did. It's not just about the mistakes. It's about how you deal with them, and keeping your composure even when it feels like everything's going wrong." Marissa nodded. "Exactly. You've got potential, Vanessa. Keep it up." As Marissa walked away, Vanessa stood there for a moment, letting the words sink in. It felt good to be recognized, especially after a day that had started with so much uncertainty. The spill, the apology, the awkwardness, it all felt so distant now. What mattered was the way things had turned out in the end, and the lesson she had learned along the way. Later that evening, after the crew had finished their shift, Vanessa found herself sitting at a quiet cafe near the airport, reflecting on everything that had happened. She absent-mindedly stirred her coffee, thinking about Keanu and the way he had made her feel. His calmness and kindness had turned what could have been an unbearable situation into a learning experience. And, in a way, that had been a gift, something she would carry with her long after the flight was over. But as she sat there, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from a number she didn't recognize. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the text. "Hi Vanessa, it's Keanu. I just wanted to check in and make sure you're doing all right after everything. I know it was a stressful situation, but you handled it so well. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Keanu." Vanessa stared at the message, disbelief and gratitude washing over her in equal measure. She had never imagined that Keanu would take the time to reach out to her after everything. This wasn't just a celebrity who had been kind in the moment. This was someone who genuinely cared enough to follow up, to check on how she was doing. She quickly typed out a reply, her fingers trembling slightly as she crafted her words. "Thank you so much, Keanu. I can't tell you how much your words meant to me today. I've learned a lot from you, and I won't forget it. Hope to see you again sometime." After hitting send, Vanessa leaned back in her chair, feeling a wave of warmth spread through her chest. It was surreal, really. Here she was, sitting in a quiet cafe, texting one of the most famous actors in the world. And yet, it felt perfectly normal, like two people who had shared an unexpected moment of connection. The next few days passed, and the world around Vanessa began to feel a little lighter. She found herself walking with more confidence, carrying herself with a new sense of grace. The spill, while still embarrassing, no longer felt like a defining moment. Instead, it had become a part of her journey, a reminder that even the most awkward situations could be opportunities for growth. Then, one morning, as Vanessa was going over her schedule for the day, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text from Keanu, but an email from the airline's PR department. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the email, her eyes scanning the subject line. Special recognition for flight attendant Vanessa Collins. The email detailed the incredible feedback that the airline had received from the passengers on the flight, specifically highlighting Vanessa's professionalism and composure during the coffee spill incident. It mentioned how the passengers, including Keanu, had been impressed by her calmness under pressure and how she had managed to turn the situation around with grace and efficiency. Vanessa couldn't believe it. She was stunned by the praise, and for a moment, she felt as though the world had shifted beneath her feet. The recognition wasn't just a pat on the back. It was validation. It was confirmation that she was good at what she did, and that people, passengers, her colleagues, and even celebrities recognized it. As she read through the email, Vanessa's eyes were drawn to one final line. "We are pleased to inform you that, due to your exemplary performance, you've been selected to attend an exclusive customer service training seminar, and you'll receive a special certificate in recognition of your efforts." A huge grin spread across Vanessa's face. She had always dreamed of being recognized for her hard work, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. It was a moment of triumph, a reflection of her growth, and the lessons she had learned from the most unexpected of situations. With a feeling of renewed purpose, Vanessa looked out the wind. Vanessa stared at the message, disbelief and gratitude washing over her in equal measure. She had never imagined that Keanu would take the time to reach out to her after everything. This wasn't just a celebrity who had been kind in the moment. This was someone who genuinely cared enough to follow up, to check on how she was doing. She quickly typed out a reply, her fingers trembling slightly as she crafted her words. "Thank you so much, Keanu. I can't tell you how much your words meant to me today. I've learned a lot from you, and I won't forget it. Hope to see you again sometime." After hitting send, Vanessa leaned back in her chair, feeling a wave of warmth spread through her chest. It was surreal, really. Here she was, sitting in a quiet cafe, texting one of the most famous actors in the world. And yet, it felt perfectly normal, like two people who had shared an unexpected moment of connection. The next few days passed, and the world around Vanessa began to feel a little lighter. She found herself walking with more confidence, carrying herself with a new sense of grace. The spill, while still embarrassing, no longer felt like a defining moment. Instead, it had become a part of her journey, a reminder that even the most awkward situations could be opportunities for growth. Then, one morning, as Vanessa was going over her schedule for the day, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text from Keanu, but an email from the airline's PR department. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the email, her eyes scanning the subject line. "Special recognition for flight attendant Vanessa Collins." The email detailed the incredible feedback that the airline had received from the passengers on the flight, specifically highlighting Vanessa's professionalism and composure during the coffee spill incident. It mentioned how the passengers, including Keanu, had been impressed by her calmness under pressure and how she had managed to turn the situation around with grace and efficiency. Vanessa couldn't believe it. She was stunned by the praise, and for a moment, she felt as though the world had shifted beneath her feet. The recognition wasn't just a pat on the back. It was validation. It was confirmation that she was good at what she did, and that people, passengers, her colleagues, and even celebrities recognized it. As she read through the email, Vanessa's eyes were drawn to one final line. "We are pleased to inform you that, due to your exemplary performance, you've been selected to attend an exclusive customer service training seminar, and you'll receive a special certificate in recognition of your efforts." A huge grin spread across Vanessa's face. She had always dreamed of being recognized for her hard work, But this was beyond anything she had imagined. It was a moment of triumph, a reflection of her growth, and the lessons she had learned from the most unexpected of situations. With a feeling of renewed purpose, Vanessa looked out the window, the sunlight filtering through the trees, and realized that this was just the beginning. She had faced a difficult moment, but in the end, it had shaped her into someone stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever before. The next few days flew by in a blur of excitement and anticipation. Vanessa could hardly believe the recognition she had received. Her heart swelled with pride each time she thought about the email from the PR department. Not only had her actions been acknowledged, but she had also been selected for an exclusive customer service seminar, a professional development opportunity she had always hoped for. As the days passed, Vanessa found herself walking with an extra spring in her step. She wasn't just a flight attendant anymore. She was someone who had proven her ability to handle difficult situations with grace. The spill on that flight had seemed like a disaster at first, but now it felt like the turning point of her career. One morning, as she prepared for another routine flight, she received an unexpected call. It was from the airline's corporate office, and the voice on the other end was familiar. It was Marissa, her supervisor. "Vanessa, how are you?" Marissa asked cheerfully. "I'm good, thanks. Just finishing up a quick prep for today's flight," Vanessa replied, wondering why Marissa was calling. "Well, I have something exciting to share with you," Marissa continued. "You know how we've been getting great feedback from the passengers, right? Well, it's not just the regular compliments. The higher-ups are really impressed with you, and they've decided to offer you something special." Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? Something special?" "There's an event coming up," Marissa explained. "A VIP gala for some of our top-tier clients, and they want you to be a part of it. They've heard about the way you handled yourself with Keanu and the other passengers, and they believe you're the kind of person they want representing the airline. So, they're inviting you to this exclusive event as a guest of honor." Vanessa's jaw dropped. She had never imagined anything like this would happen. A VIP gala? As a guest of honor? Felt surreal. I don't know what to say," Vanessa stammered, feeling the weight of the invitation. "Are you sure they meant me? I'm just a flight attendant." Marissa laughed, her voice warm and encouraging. "Yes, they meant you, Vanessa. You've earned it. You showed something extraordinary during that flight, and people are noticing. Don't sell yourself short. This is a huge opportunity for you." The words hit Vanessa like a ton of bricks. She had always dreamed of moments like this, where hard work and dedication were acknowledged in such a meaningful way. And now, here it was right in front of her. It was more than just a reward for her actions. It was a testament to her growth as a professional, as a person who could handle even the most challenging situations with grace and confidence. "I'm honored," Vanessa finally managed to say, still trying to process the incredible news. "Thank you so much for telling me. I'll be there for sure." "Good," Marissa said, clearly pleased. "I'll send you the details. Just remember, this is a big deal. You're representing the best of the airline, so make sure you're prepared to shine." Vanessa hung up the phone, her mind racing. She had always prided herself on doing her job well, but this was a whole new level. Not only was she being recognized for her actions, but she was also being offered a chance to network, to make connections with people who could help further her career. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. As she boarded the plane that afternoon, her mind couldn't help but drift back to that moment with Keanu. The kindness, the calmness, the way he had made her feel like she mattered. She realized that it wasn't just about the spill. It was about how people, even in moments of embarrassment or stress, could show empathy and understanding. Keanu had set an example without even trying, and it had left an indelible mark on her. Part 7. The Gala. The evening of the VIP gala arrived with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Vanessa had spent the last few days preparing, choosing the perfect dress, practicing her etiquette, and mentally rehearsing what she might say to the high-profile guests. This wasn't just any gala. This was a high-end event attended by some of the airline's most important clients, and as a guest of honor, Vanessa knew she would be expected to conduct herself with poise and professionalism. When she arrived at the event hall, She was struck by the opulence of it all. The venue was a lavish hotel ballroom, with sparkling chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and tables draped in crisp white linens. The air was filled with the sound of soft music and the clinking of glasses as guests mingled and enjoyed their evening. Vanessa was greeted at the door by a representative from the airline, who escorted her to the VIP area where the most important guests were gathered. As she walked into the room, she was immediately struck by the presence of several familiar faces. There were top executives from the airline, influential figures in the business world, and even a few celebrities she recognized. The atmosphere was sophisticated, and Vanessa couldn't help but feel a little out of place in the midst of it all. But then, just as she was beginning to feel overwhelmed, a voice interrupted her thoughts. Vanessa! She turned around to see Marissa, her supervisor, walking towards her with a smile. You made it, Marissa said warmly, giving her a brief hug. You look fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. Vanessa smiled, feeling her nerves ease just a little. Thanks, Marissa. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of this. It's surreal. Marissa chuckled. I get that, but you earned it. Now just enjoy the night and network a little. You never know who you might meet. Vanessa nodded, her heart pounding as she took in the scene around her. She could feel the eyes of the room on her, and she realized that this was her moment to make a lasting impression. She had worked hard to get here, and she wasn't about to let this opportunity slip through her fingers. As the evening progressed, Vanessa found herself engaged in conversations with several influential people. She talked about her experiences as a flight attendant, shared a few stories from her time in the air, and even had a chance to discuss her future goals with some of the airline's executives. The entire night felt like a whirlwind, but Vanessa handled it with the poise and confidence she had gained over the past few weeks. But then, just as the night was beginning to wind down, Vanessa spotted a familiar face across the room. It was Keanu. He was standing with a small group of people, talking and laughing, but when he saw Vanessa, he excused himself from the conversation and walked over to her. Vanessa, he said, his warm smile instantly putting her at ease. I didn't expect to see you here. It's great to see you again. Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea he would be attending, and the fact that he remembered her, after everything that had happened, made her feel truly special. Keanu, she replied, her voice bright with surprise. I didn't know you'd be here. Of course I am, he said with a wink. I wouldn't miss this for the world. I'm glad to see you're doing well. Looks like the night's been treating you right. Vanessa chuckled. It's been amazing. A little overwhelming, but incredible. Keanu smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. You're doing great. I knew you'd shine tonight. As the night drew to a close, Vanessa couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. The gala had been everything she had hoped for and more. She had met new people, made valuable connections, and felt a renewed sense of purpose. But more than anything, she had learned that opportunities could come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes all it took was a moment of kindness, a little grace, and the courage to move forward. The days following the VIP gala were filled with excitement and reflection. Vanessa couldn't stop thinking about the incredible opportunities that had come her way. She had always been a hardworking and dedicated flight attendant, but now it felt like her career had taken a turn. The recognition from her superiors, the chance to attend the gala, and the meaningful conversations with influential people had opened her eyes to the possibilities beyond her current role. Still, even with the newfound attention, Vanessa was careful not to let it go to her head. She knew that she needed to continue proving herself, both to her colleagues and to herself. She couldn't let the accolades distract her from the reason she had started this career in the first place: her love for aviation and the people she served. One evening, as she was winding down after a flight, Vanessa received another unexpected text. This time it was from Marissa. Vanessa, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to let you know that the airline is offering you a promotion. We've been impressed by your professionalism and the way you've handled yourself in high-pressure situations. You've been selected to train as a lead flight attendant. Congratulations! Vanessa's heart skipped a beat as she read the message. A promotion? Lead flight attendant? She hadn't expected this level of recognition so soon, but here it was, a clear acknowledgement of her hard work. Felt surreal. She quickly called Marissa to thank her. "Marissa, I can't believe this. A promotion to lead flight attendant? I'm honored. Thank you so much for believing in me." Marissa's voice on the other end was warm. "You earned it, Vanessa. You've shown time and time again that you're ready for more responsibility. You've been an example to the team, and we know you'll continue to shine." Vanessa's mind was racing. She had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to do next. The idea of becoming a lead flight attendant was both exciting and intimidating. It meant more responsibilities, more challenges, but also the opportunity to grow even further in her career. After hanging up, Vanessa sat down on her couch and took a deep breath. She thought about everything that had led her to this moment. The spill with Keanu, the support from her colleagues, the kind words from passengers, and now this incredible opportunity. It all felt like the universe was pushing her towards something greater. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of training sessions, meetings, and preparations for her new role. She learned about the intricacies of managing a cabin crew, handling special passenger requests, and leading with authority while maintaining the warmth and care she was known for. It was a lot to take in, but Vanessa embraced the challenge wholeheartedly. She found that her experience during that flight with Keanu had given her a unique perspective on leadership. It wasn't about barking orders or holding on to control. It was about empathy, listening, and leading by example. Keanu had shown her that, and now she was determined to carry those lessons forward. Part 9, the Leadership Challenge. As Vanessa settled into her role as a lead flight attendant, she found that leadership was not as glamorous as she had once imagined. There were moments of stress, difficult passengers, and situations that required quick decision-making. But there were also moments of triumph, times when she was able to guide her crew through a challenging situation with confidence, or when a passenger expressed their gratitude for her efforts. One of the most difficult aspects of her new role was managing the dynamics of the crew. Not everyone was as excited about change as she was, and some of her fellow flight attendants were less than thrilled about her promotion. There were subtle tensions in the crew, and Vanessa had to find a way to address them without alienating anyone. It wasn't easy, but Vanessa's approach was always grounded in respect. She made an effort to listen to her colleagues, to understand their concerns, and to involve them in decision-making. It wasn't about being the boss. It was about being a partner, someone who could guide and support the team. One afternoon, as she prepared for another flight, Vanessa found herself talking with a fellow flight attendant, Greg, who had been skeptical of her promotion. "You know, I wasn't sure about you when you first got the promotion," Greg admitted, his tone surprisingly candid. "But I have to say I've been impressed. You really know how to handle things." Vanessa smiled. "Thanks, Greg. It means a lot to hear that. I know it's not always easy to adjust to new leadership, but I'm trying to do my best." Greg nodded. "It's clear that you care about the team. I can respect that." As the flight went on, Vanessa noticed a shift in the atmosphere. There was a newfound camaraderie among the crew, and she could sense that her efforts to build trust and respect were paying off. It wasn't going to be perfect, but she was confident that she could handle the challenges that lay ahead. Part 10, Full Circle. Months passed, and Vanessa's growth as a lead flight attendant continued. She had learned to balance the demands of leadership with her natural empathy and kindness, and it had earned her the respect of both her colleagues and passengers. Her career had taken off in ways she had never imagined, but she still remained grounded, remembering the lessons she had learned from that fateful flight with Keanu. One day, as she was preparing for another flight, she received a message that made her heart skip a beat. It was from Keanu. "Hey Vanessa, I heard you've been promoted to lead flight attendant. I just wanted to say congratulations. You've come a long way since we met on that flight, and I couldn't be prouder of you. Keep doing amazing things. Keanu." Vanessa stared at the message for a long moment, feeling a rush of emotion. Keanu's words were more than just congratulatory. They were a reminder of how far she had come and how much she had learned. As she boarded the plane that day, she couldn't help but think back to that first moment when she had spilled coffee on Keanu Reeves in first class. It had been a small, embarrassing mistake, but it had turned into the catalyst for everything that had followed. That moment had set her on a path of growth, leadership, and connection, one that had changed her life forever. With a sense of pride and gratitude, Vanessa walked down the aisle of the plane, ready to lead her team and serve her passengers, knowing that the journey was only just beginning.